Ladies and gentlemen, good evening once again. You are once again welcome here on the Éveil de Conscience platform. This is the top story in international news. Yes, the France, it's so embarrassing, so much so that France was ashamed, but these are people who never learned their lesson. In this affair where Macron was caught red-handed with his colleagues, his buddies from the European Union, with the powder, France responded. The French presidency came out to issue a systematic denial, claiming that everything seen in the video was not powder. What people are saying is a lie. It's Russian propaganda. The French presidency is attacking Russia. However, Russia only spoke up as, after all, the internet users had already made the observation. How is it possible that we say it was internet users who were the first to see the image, to go to zoom in and ultimately conclude that it was white powder? And then when Russia spoke up last, France comes out and claims that it is Russia behind this propaganda. It's just propaganda meant to harm France, to harm the French president. Ladies and gentlemen, the Élysée has issued a denial. Early in the morning of May 12, 2025, the Élysée issued a categorical denial, stating that it was not white powder. They say that it is not white powder. But this is where you realize that there are truly clever minds working around Macron who managed to find the right words to convince the French people and those who are easily manipulated that it wasn't powder. So, what is France saying about Russia? And what did Russia say? That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're discussing in this video, which I ask you to share. It needs to be shared. Yes, our brothers and sisters also need to see this side of France and understand who the French are, especially who Emmanuel Macron is. Yes, you can deny what was blatantly obvious like that. To begin with, let's go with the official information on this. May 12th, the French presidency issued a categorical denial. France says it's a white handkerchief. So I take the blankets then like that it is a piece of Kleenex that was placed on the table. But since that piece of tissue was left there, it didn't look good. So Macron didn't want that piece of white handkerchief. They didn't say tissue, that's my word, but they said it was a handkerchief. So we can equate it to a tissue. He didn't want that white handkerchief to look bad. If it appeared in the photos, it would really be. That's why the French president took it away over there. But in the video you can see that when he took it, he looked very uncomfortable. Then he passed it to his other hand. I didn't play that part here, but many people saw it. When he passed it to his other hand, he gently put it in his pocket and sat down like that, looked to the side and said, "Is everyone okay? Is everything okay?" I said, "Yes, it's fine." Keir Starmer, the Brit, was next to him. Who else was next to him? Anyway, those little European buddies of his with whom he took the powder. As for the little white spoon, they didn't say anything about it. At least as far as No, they didn't say anything about it. But what was that little white spoon for anyway? It's the spoon that comes with the napkin, or maybe the cups of water that were there. The little spoon, but it's not a coffee spoon. It's even smaller than that. So maybe he used it to take water, perhaps to put in his nostrils or something like that. You see, now France is saying that it's Russia behind this propaganda. Look, we all saw it with our own eyes. And France says that everyone talking about it on social media was sent by Russia. They're Russian propagandists. Listen, we all saw it with our own two eyes. With our own two eyes. Yes. But if it was just a tissue, why did he need to hide it? He would have just taken it and that's it. He could have looked for a trash can somewhere, since there's always a small trash can around there. That's it. Or he could have just kept it in his hand. And that's it. Even his expression wouldn't have changed. And then after the incident happened, we saw some images. I'll see if I can show you some here. Where Emmanuel Macron is stopped. Much. When you look at his face, you can tell the guy is completely, his face looks like this. You can tell, yes, he's really under the influence. That was on the train. And even his way of dressing. When he got on the train, they say that when he boarded, he was wearing a suit. But later he was seen dressed strangely. And so the presidency said no, he wanted to imitate Zelensky. Since Zelensky is at war, the way he dresses, that sort of thing. We even saw his behavior on the train. France says it wasn't powder, it was a white handkerchief. They say that the French presidency claims that when European unity becomes inconvenient, disinformation goes so far as to turn a simple paper napkin into a narcotic. Here is what the French presidency wrote. So for them, it's because the Europeans are coming together, because Macron is bringing together Keir Starmer, etc. They are uniting around Ukraine. That's why it's becoming inconvenient. That's why they're spreading disinformation. What did Russia say? Maria Zakharova, head of Russian diplomacy, said that the packet and a spoon seen on the table during a meeting between Macron, Keir Starmer, and the new German Chancellor, Metz, were paraphernalia for consuming the substance. They say that it was following Russia's statement that obviously the information was quickly amplified by Russian propagandists. Here is what France says. We all saw with our own eyes. The little thing that was there, white, and the spoon there. We understood what the white thing was. What was the little spoon for? Ladies and gentlemen, here is the true face of France. They will never be able to admit it, since the consumption of that thing, even in France itself, is forbidden. Yet he takes it. If they admit that he himself is taking it, that means France has lost its head. That's what this is about. Thank you for sharing the video. That was the headline. I'll be back with more news shortly.